The rain hadn't stopped since the funeral. It fell in slow, relentless sheets, washing over the headstones outside my window, like the sky itself couldn't let him go. I sat on the couch, still wearing black, my coffee cold, my heart heavier than it had been the day before. 2 days. That's all it had been since I'd buried Michael, my husband, my best friend, my reason for believing in something steady. The house was too quiet. His toothbrush was still by the sink, his jacket still hanging by the door. I hadn't been able to touch a single thing. Then the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first, but the moment I heard her voice, my chest tightened. "Lydia," she said. "It's Margaret," Michael's mother. She hadn't said much at the funeral, just stared at me with those sharp blue eyes that had never quite softened, not even on our wedding day. "Hello, Margaret," I said, trying to sound composed. There was a pause. I could hear the clinking of dishes in the background, the faint hum of a television. Then she said calmly and without hesitation, "Now that he's gone, you can give back our family name." For a moment I thought I'd misheard her. "Excuse me?" "Our name," she repeated. "You're not a Bennett anymore. It's time you stop using it." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Margaret, Michael and I were married for 13 years. That doesn't change the fact that you don't belong to this family," she said. Her tone clipped, rehearsed. "You were never one of us." My hand shook as I gripped the phone. "Why would you say something like that? He's barely gone." "That's exactly why," she said. "I won't let his memory be tied to the woman who ruined his life." My throat tightened. "Ruined?" But she didn't answer. She just exhaled sharply and said, "We'll be handling the estate. You'll hear from the lawyer soon." Then she hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at the phone, her words echoing in my mind. Give back our family name, as if grief weren't enough. Now she wanted to erase me entirely. But Margaret Bennett had underestimated me for years. I wasn't going to vanish quietly just because her son was gone. Not when I knew things about her family that she'd rather stay buried. And if she wanted a war over his name, she was about to get one. The next morning I woke up to the sound of mail sliding through the slot in the front door. I almost ignored it. Grief makes everything heavy. But something about the sharp slap of paper against the floor made me move. Among the bills and condolence cards was a thick, cream-colored envelope stamped with the Bennett family crest, a gold B encircled by ivy. Margaret's doing. Inside was a letter from her attorney. My stomach clenched as I unfolded it. "Dear Mrs. Bennett, in accordance with the wishes of the late Michael Bennett's family, we are requesting the immediate return of all property, financial assets, and personal items belonging to the Bennett estate, including the marital home. Please prepare to vacate the premises within 30 days. Sincerely, Charles Lowell, attorney at law." I sat there, reading the lines over and over until the words blurred. Vacate the home. Return all property, as if the last 13 years of my life were just borrowed. I threw the letter onto the table and let out a shaky laugh. It wasn't even anger yet, just disbelief. Margaret had waited less than 48 hours to come after me. I looked around the house, the framed photos, the kitchen we'd remodeled together, the garden he'd planted for me the summer we married. Every piece of this home was ours, not his family's, and yet I knew Margaret wouldn't stop at threats. She'd find a way to make this official if I didn't fight back. I needed advice, and there was only one person I could trust with something this ugly. Michael's best friend, David. I called him that afternoon. His voice cracked when he picked up. "Lydia, I've been meaning to check on you. How are you holding up?" I hesitated. "Not great. I just got a letter from Margaret's lawyer." A pause. "What kind of letter?" "The kind that tells me to leave my own house." "Jesus," he muttered. "She's really doing this?" "Yes," I said quietly. "And she's claiming it's part of Michael's estate. But he left everything to me. I was his wife." "She can't just rewrite the law," he said. "Did you see the will?" I froze. "No. The lawyer said they'd be handling it." David's tone darkened. "That's not how it works, Lydia. You're the spouse. You have rights." My chest tightened. "Then why do I have this letter and not the will?" "Because she's hiding something," he said without hesitation. Listen, Michael mentioned a few things to me before he passed. He said if anything ever happened, you'd find what you needed in his study. Top drawer, locked box. I glanced toward the hallway. The study door was half open, the room dark except for the faint light spilling through the curtains. Do you know what's in it? I asked. No, David said. But he told me one thing. If my mother tries anything, that box will shut her down. My pulse quickened. I'll call you back, I whispered. I hung up and walked toward the study. The air inside smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. Michael's scent. I found the small oak box in the top drawer just as David said. The key, thankfully, was still taped beneath the desk. When I opened it, I expected financial papers or maybe letters. But what I found made my knees go weak. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Margaret smiling beside a man I didn't recognize. Different settings, different years. Some looked intimate, too intimate. At the bottom was a sealed envelope labeled simply, "For Lydia, if she ever turns on you." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were printed bank statements, foreign accounts under Margaret Bennett's name, transfers, hidden investments, and signatures that matched the attorney's firm. It hit me then. This wasn't about family pride. This was about money, power. Margaret wasn't trying to protect Michael's legacy. She was trying to erase me before I discovered what she'd done with it. And now I had proof. I sat on the floor of the study, surrounded by a lifetime I suddenly didn't recognize. The rain had stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. It felt like the house itself was listening. The photographs, the foreign accounts, the letter, all of it painted a picture I hadn't wanted to see. Margaret Bennett wasn't just cold-hearted. She was corrupt. I spread the documents across the rug, my fingers tracing the numbers on each page. The transfers went back almost a decade. Money siphoned from Michael's family trust into shell accounts under Margaret's name. She'd been stealing from her own son, and now that he was gone, she wanted to make sure no one found out. I grabbed my phone and called David. He picked up on the second ring. "David," I said, breathless. "You were right. She's been hiding money, millions of dollars. There are offshore accounts, fake transfers, everything. Do you have proof?" "Yes, I have it all." "Then don't let it out of your sight," he said quickly. "And Lydia, don't confront her alone. If she's willing to forge legal papers, she's dangerous." I stared at the box. "She called me yesterday, told me to give back the Bennett name." David was silent for a long time. Then he said, "You're going to need help. I'll call a friend of mine, a lawyer. Discreet but sharp. He'll know what to do." "Thank you." After we hung up, I sat there for a moment just breathing. The anger was fading into something colder. Focus. Michael had trusted me, loved me, and now, protecting what he'd built meant standing up to the woman who'd raised him. I made copies of everything, every document, every photo, every account number. Then I locked the originals in the small safe under the floorboards and tucked the copies into a plain manila folder. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the clouds, my phone rang again. "Margaret!" For a second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but I answered. "Lydia," she said, her tone sharp, businesslike. "I assume you received our letter?" I did. "Good. I trust you'll make the right decision and vacate before things get messy." My hand tightened around the phone. "Messy like your offshore accounts?" There was a pause. Long, brittle silence. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said finally. "Yes, you do." My voice was steady now. "I found the records, Margaret. All of them. You've been moving money out of the family trust for years." Her voice dropped colder. "You're playing a dangerous game, Lydia." "No," I said quietly. "I'm ending one." Another silence. I could hear her breathing, slow and furious. "Do you really think anyone will believe you?" she said. "You were always just the outsider. The charity case my son married." "Maybe," I said. "But I have proof, and I have a lawyer who's already seen it." That was a lie, but it didn't matter. The moment I said it, I heard the faintest tremor in her voice. Fear. "You'll regret this," she hissed. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, phone still in my hand, staring at the reflection of the rain on the window. I'd spent 13 years trying to earn Margaret Bennett's respect. I'd forgiven her coldness, ignored her judgment, believed that one day she'd see me as family. But tonight, I finally understood something Michael had once said to me when we were first married. My mother doesn't lose, Lydia. She eliminates. I looked at the folder of evidence on the table and whispered, not this time. Because this time, I had nothing left to lose and everything to expose. David's friend, the lawyer, was named Rachel Porter. She agreed to meet me at a small cafe downtown, one of those quiet places where the smell of espresso hides nervous energy. When I arrived, she was already seated by the window, tapping notes into her tablet. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, no nonsense. The kind of woman Margaret Bennett would despise. "Lydia Bennett?" she asked, standing to shake my hand. "For now," I said, forcing a small smile. We sat. I slid the folder across the table. Everything's in there. Bank statements, photographs, letters, all showing Margaret moved millions out of the family trust. And she's trying to evict me to keep me quiet. Rachel opened the folder, scanned a few pages, and let out a low whistle. "This is serious. These accounts are international. If what you're showing me is real, she's been laundering money through dummy corporations for years." I nodded. "Michael never knew." Rachel glanced up. "And you found this after he died?" "Yes. He left me a key to his study. He must have suspected something." She leaned back, thinking. "If she's trying to intimidate you, that means she doesn't know how much you've uncovered. That's good. It gives us control." "Control?" Rachel smiled faintly. "We'll build leverage. We file an injunction to freeze the trust assets and request a forensic audit. Once that's in motion, she can't move a dollar without triggering suspicion." My pulse quickened. "How long would that take?" "Days, maybe less," she said. "But Lydia, once this starts, she'll come for you. Hard. You need to be ready." I nodded, though my stomach twisted. "I've been ready since the moment she called me." Rachel packed up her notes. "I'll draft the paperwork tonight. Don't contact her again. Let her make the next move." When I stepped outside, the air smelled of wet pavement and smoke from the coffee roaster next door. For the first time since Michael's funeral, I felt something that almost resembled strength. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing Margaret's voice on the phone, her words echoing in the dark. "You were never one of us." Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. "Unknown. You should have walked away while you could." I froze. Another message came through seconds later. "Unknown. You don't know what Michael was protecting you from." My heart pounded. Protecting me? From what? Before I could reply, another text appeared. This one with a photo. It was my house, taken from the street. That night, I shot to my feet, every nerve on fire. I checked the locks, the windows, the porch. Nothing. The street was empty. I called David, my voice shaking. "Someone's watching the house." "Lydia, listen to me," he said, his voice urgent. "Leave, right now. Come stay with me until this blows over." "I'm not running," I said. "That's what she wants." "Then at least don't stay alone." I hung up, still staring out the window. The streetlight flickered once, then went dark. Somewhere out there in the shadows, someone knew exactly what I'd found. And if Margaret wasn't behind that photo, then maybe she wasn't the only one with something to lose. Because suddenly, I wasn't sure the enemy was just her anymore. The next morning, I drove straight to Rachel's office. I hadn't slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo. The angle, the glare of my porch light in the frame. Someone had been close, too close. Rachel took one look at me and frowned. "You didn't sleep." "Someone sent me a picture of my house last night," I said, sliding my phone across her desk. Her jaw tightened. "Did you report it?" "I wanted to, but I don't know who to trust." "What if it traces back to her?" Rachel thought for a moment, then said, "Let me handle it quietly. I know a private investigator who owes me a favor." She picked up the phone and dialed a number. Her tone was sharp, professional. "Yes, it's Porter. I need a background sweep and security footage near 116 Maple Lane, as soon as possible." When she hung up, she looked at me seriously. "We'll find out who's watching you. In the meantime, I need you to walk me through everything that happened before Michael died. Anything unusual? I hesitated. He'd been distracted for months. Calls late at night, papers he wouldn't let me see. When I asked, he said it was business. Did he seem scared? I thought back. Yes, not all the time. But sometimes I'd catch him staring out the window like he expected someone to show up. Rachel's expression darkened. Lydia, what if Margaret wasn't the one he was hiding from? I frowned. Then who? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. She read the message, her eyes widening slightly. The investigator found something. I leaned forward. What? The car that took that photo. It's registered to Bennett Industries, Michael's company. The room tilted. You mean, someone inside the company is keeping tabs on you, she said. Someone who doesn't want this investigation to move forward. A cold wave ran through me. Rachel, you said she might not be the only one with something to lose. What did you mean by that? Rachel opened the folder again, flipping to the offshore accounts. I ran a check on the signatures, just to be sure. Margaret signed most of the transfers, yes, but there's another name that appears on several of them. I felt my chest tighten. Whose? She turned the document toward me. Michael Bennett. I stared at his signature, perfectly neat and deliberate. That's impossible. He hated what his mother was doing. He told me he wanted to distance himself from her. Rachel shook her head. The transfer started years ago. Small amounts at first, then larger. It looks like he was in on it, at least early on. Maybe he tried to pull out later. Maybe that's why things got dangerous. My mind spun. Had he been protecting me or hiding from his own choices? Rachel, I said quietly, if that's true, then... A knock cut me off. Her assistant peeked in, pale. There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Rachel glanced at me, then back at her assistant. Who is it? The assistant hesitated. A woman. Says her name is Margaret Bennett. For a second, the air left the room. Rachel straightened, her voice steady. Tell her I'm in a meeting. But before the assistant could close the door, Margaret stepped in herself, elegant as ever, eyes sharp as glass. Well, she said, her voice smooth and venomous. Isn't this cozy? My daughter-in-law and her new lawyer plotting away. I stood slowly, my heart pounding. What do you want, Margaret? She smiled. Just to make sure you understand what you're doing. You think you're protecting Michael's memory? You're not. You're destroying it. Rachel spoke up. Mrs. Bennett, you need to leave. This conversation is inappropriate. Margaret ignored her, fixing her gaze on me. You should stop digging, Lydia. My son wasn't the saint you think he was. I swallowed hard. You're lying. She tilted her head. Then tell me why, before he died, he transferred everything back into my name. The room went silent. Rachel looked at me, then back at Margaret. You'll need to provide proof of that. Oh, I will, Margaret said softly. But when I do, your client will wish she'd just given back our family name when she had the chance. Then she turned and left, the door clicking shut behind her like a period at the end of a threat. Rachel exhaled slowly. She's bluffing, she said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. I stared at the door, long after she was gone, my stomach twisting. If Michael had transferred everything back before he died, then maybe Margaret wasn't bluffing at all. Maybe she was finishing something he'd started. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted to know the whole truth. That night I sat in my car, outside the Bennett estate, the same place where Michael and I had celebrated holidays and endured Margaret's polished cruelty for 13 long years. The house glowed faintly in the mist. White columns, dark windows, quiet as a tomb. Rachel's words echoed in my mind. She's bluffing, but I needed to know for sure. I walked up the long stone path, my shoes silent against the wet ground. Margaret's lights were still on. Through the window, I saw her seated in her study, a glass of wine in one hand, a file spread open on the table in front of her. I didn't knock. I opened the door. She looked up, not startled at all. I wondered how long it would take before you came. I want to see it, I said. The proof you mentioned. Her mouth curved into a thin smile. You always were direct. Fine. She gestured to the folder. Go ahead. Inside were bank statements, fresh ones, dated only a month before Michael's death. Transfers, yes. but this time from his private account to hers. The amounts matched the totals in my folder. It was true. He'd sent everything back. I stared at the papers, heart sinking. Why? Margaret stood and poured herself more wine. Because he realized what you'd done to him. What I did. She walked toward me, her perfume sharp and cold. You think I didn't see through you from the start? The nurse's daughter who wanted to marry into a family with a name that meant something? Michael finally saw it too. He was going to leave you. But then, she paused, smiling faintly. He died before he could. Her words sliced through me, but somewhere beneath the hurt was clarity. She wasn't gloating. She was covering. I took a step closer. No, you're lying. He didn't transfer the money willingly. Her jaw tightened. Be careful what you accuse me of, Lydia. I looked down at the papers again, and then I saw it. The same flaw as before. The signature on those new transfers was clean but wrong. The curl of the M too sharp. The spacing too tight. It wasn't Michael's hand. It was hers. I lifted my eyes to her. You forged these. Her expression flickered just for a second. You can't prove that. I don't have to, I said. Rachel can. She already verified Michael's actual signatures through his company records. The mask cracked. Margaret's face went pale. You don't know what you're getting into. I know enough, I said quietly. I know he found out what you were doing with the trust, and I know he planned to expose you. That's why you forged the transfers, to make it look like he sided with you. She didn't speak, didn't deny it. Her silence was enough. I stepped back, my voice calm now. You told me to give back your family name, but you're the one who should be ashamed to carry it. Her hand trembled around her glass, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked small, not powerful, not untouchable, just old woman cornered by her own lies. I turned to leave, but stopped in the doorway. The investigators will have everything by morning. Rachel's filing the injunction. Margaret's voice cracked behind me. You'll destroy the family. I didn't look back. No, I'm saving what's left of it. Outside, the air smelled of rain and freedom. The next week was a blur. Statements, court filings, reporters circling the Bennett legacy like vultures. Rachel handled it all with icy precision. By Friday, the trust was frozen, and the Bennett matriarch's assets were under investigation. When it was over, I went to Michael's grave. The grass was still damp, the sky pale and forgiving. I set a single white rose on the stone and whispered, She tried to erase me, but instead I erased her lies. For the first time since the funeral, I felt peace. Not because justice was served, but because I finally knew the truth. Michael hadn't betrayed me. He'd been trying to fix what his mother broke. And though she'd tried to take back the Bennett name, it was mine now. Not because I'd married into it, but because I'd earned it. I walked away from the grave with my head high, the storm clouds breaking behind me. Margaret had her power. Michael had his secrets. But me? I had the truth, and that would last longer than any name.